Hello and welcome to another live edition of the Nittany Dispatch. I'm John Sauber, Penn State beat writer at the Center Daily Times. She is Audrey Snyder doing the same at InsideTheLions.substack.com. And I feel like it's worth saying this at the top. If you want our thoughts and opinions, this is the place to get them. You can get them where we write at Inside the Lines for Audrey, at Center Daily Times for me, sometimes on social media. Where you can't get them is on a private message board from people claiming to be talking to us, just to be clear.
Wow. See, I don't even know. I don't even wade into any of that, John. If you want my best work, go to Inside the Lions on Substack.
Yes.
The best stuff will always be behind the paywall. I've got the transfer portal tracker rolling. Yeah, there's been no shortage of news.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I felt the need to say that because evidently we've got some people pretending to be texting us, or at least me, which is very dumb and funny to me. But yes, a lot of news with the transfer portal. Let's start with, I think, the departures. That's probably the best place to go and we'll get into, players that Penn State can target. There will be a lot of those from Iowa State. But I think that the important thing off the top is the departures, because that's who Penn State is going to have to replace. And that's where I think what will guide a lot of this, not just for our discussion, but for Penn State when they go to look at the portal.
Yeah, I was exchanging texts with some people yesterday, and I said, what are like positions in need for this roster at this point? And the response was pretty much everything. And that, again, this is not, because I've seen a lot of this on social media. This is not the sky is falling, widespread panic. Oh my God, look at the people that they're losing. This is natural roster attrition in college football in 2026. This is just where things stand. This is what happens when you change a coaching staff. Again, I will say this. I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but this was a team that went 7-6. So if you're out there acting like the sky is falling because you're losing reserve players on a 7-6 roster, again, it is what it is. And that's not a slight to the players that are moving on. Everybody can do what they want to do. But the big one of the most notable ones, and I've got a list of 10 players over on my Substack Inside the Lions that I dubbed the players that Penn State can least afford to lose in the portal. So I'm kind of in my head, I'm thinking off of this list. And of course, it's the quarterback. It's the headliner. It's Ethan Grunkemeyer, who announced Thursday evening that he will enter the transfer portal. Not particularly surprising, given, that we knew Rocco Becht had planned to enter the portal, and he's coming off surgery for that torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder. But I get it. Fans started to fall in love with Ethan Grunkemeyer when he took over as the starter, and now you look at it and you're saying, man, the guy got better each week. The guy led you to 4 wins, even though wins are not a quarterback stat. I've seen some of that floating around out there. But he got better every week, and this is going to be kind of that interesting parallel of how does Ethan Grunkemeyer's career progress, and does Penn State get the better person for the next season, but also for the long haul? So to me, John, that's a notable one, but there have been some interesting departures.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with Grunkemeyer too, I would have said a week ago that there was no chance he was coming back. I actually think that became much more of a decision earlier this week. And I think there was a better chance than there was before of him staying, but ultimately him leaving is not a surprise. He's a quarterback, right? Only one of those guys play. Penn State was not going to play both him and Rocco Becht. And I'm not like breaking news or anything like that, but Rocco Becht, it's already been reported, is visiting this weekend. I'm going to guess that he brings his stuff with him and just stays. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens with several Iowa State players. Yeah,
hey guys, come check it out. You're going to see a lot of familiar faces. Yeah.
Yes. And also, here's your apartment. Go ahead and move it. But yeah, I think one of the big things here is that Penn State and Matt Campbell wanted a quarterback that knows the system, that they're familiar with, that they're comfortable with, that they know day one can be the starter for this university. And they believe they have that in Rocco Becht. And they like Ethan Grunkemeyer quite a bit, I would say. I think a lot of people do, especially after that performance against Clemson. But at the end of the day, it's just really hard to keep 2 starting level quarterbacks. We saw this play out last year with Penn State, with Drew Aller and Bo Pribula. And I think, frankly, Grunkemeyer will be more sought after than Pribula was last season. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Virginia Tech. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere like Cincinnati, right? Like, I think there are going to be options for him and what he wants to do moving forward. But make no mistake, losing him is a loss. It's not one of those guys that is, well, you clear up a roster spot and that's probably best for all involved. This is a situation where Grunkemeyer is a good quarterback. Penn State wanted to keep him. It was just never really tenable with the way the position works and with them likely bringing in potentially not even just one Iowa State quarterback, but two. And that's the other part of this. Now that Grunkemeyer is in the portal, it does open the door for them to bring in a second quarterback, one who's younger and can learn the system, or maybe even spent a year in it already.
Well, so here's the other thing with the Grunkemeyer move. I had a lot of people who said after the Pinstripe Bowl, well, why can't you just keep him for a year and say, hey, you're going to be the backup for a year and then the job's yours? One, coaching staffs do not typically like to guarantee things, especially like that, right? Because a lot can transpire in a year. And if you're Ethan Grunkemeyer, you've just shown what you can do, right? You deserve to be the starter somewhere else. And it's kind of hard to put that kind of back in the bag, back in the box after you got a strong taste of what it means to be a starter at a Big Ten program, especially. The other part is the financial side, right? You're not going to pay a backup quarterback a starting level salary when Ethan Grunkemeyer can get some nice money on this open market, right? So you have that side of it. But the other quarterback, John, there's another quarterback portaling is Beckham Kritza, which again, not a surprise. Freshman, did not play this year, was dealing with an injury for part of the year. But we're now looking at pretty much a reset in that room. We have to see as we keep checking our phones and screens to make sure. So right now, your quarterback room, you've got Jackson Smolik in it. Does he stay? Does he go? That's another layer to this because your depth in that room is going to be tested. So yeah, I mean Grunkemeyer right now is the headliner, but John, to me, the most surprising transfer portal player so far is safety King Mack.
I was going to say, I am less surprised now that we know where Anthony Poindexter is going to be. He's going to be the co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach at Tennessee. I would not be surprised one iota if King Mack ends up at Tennessee and follows Anthony Poindexter there. But yeah, Mack had the chance to step up and be a leader in the postseason, and he did that. He was a voice for this program. He was someone that Penn State wanted to retain. Was perceived and is a starter at this level, and I would guess will start at Tennessee and will play well. But yeah, this is a loss for the defense that's already losing Zakee Wheatley, and now we'll have to replace its second starting safety too.
Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, I had Mack on my list of the 10 most important players to retain because of that leadership component. Because, he was the guy who spoke so glowingly about, hey, like the culture, the leadership here needs to change. Again, he was in the room with the leaked audio, that whole fiasco. And so I was a little bit surprised in that regard. But again, with not being able to retain Anthony Poindexter, I get it. And of course, Poindexter will be reunited with Jim Knowles at Tennessee. So you've got that there, which of course we know the importance of the safety in that defense. And man, what a career. I feel like King Mack, we need to have some closure in terms of moving advice and how do you keep doing it, man? Because that is, you go from Penn State to Alabama, back to Penn State, now perhaps to an SEC institution. That's a lot of moving. That's a lot of learning. So I think if you're him, you probably want to settle in with that same defense. But yeah, I think that's significant. You're losing a starting safety, but also you're losing that leadership component. So yeah, Mack was on my list of 10, as was Ethan Grunkemeyer. And John, it is what it is, right? Nothing, and I saw some of this too from fans saying like, well, King Mack spoke so glowingly about Matt Campbell and all this. I was like, yeah, that was like, what, a week, 2 weeks ago? These guys, oftentimes you're going to see, I mean, right? Like Egan Boyer's in the transfer portal, the offensive tackle, and it's like, oh, he's going to visit Florida. Well, yeah, of course, because that's where Phil Troutwine's going to be. So you've got that link for a lot of players. But yeah, the Mack thing to me is a little bit surprising from the leadership void. And you're losing a lot of other safeties as well, more from a depth perspective with Brass Thomas and those types of guys. So yeah, but Iowa State they do a nice job with their DBs. So I think that's, if you look at it from the Penn State lens, you say, hey, they're going to find a way to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of contributors that are kind of leaving, but I don't know that there's any of the big pieces off the top of my head that have declared that they're leaving yet. You could view AJ Harris that way, but I think that was one.
You can view him that way, John.
I do view him that way. That was a month ago, and he probably wasn't going to start unless he, or he was going to have to compete to start, right, under this new staff. I think one of the departures that is going to maybe fans won't care as much because he had a down year, but I still think the upside is so high that you don't want to lose players like this. It's Luke Reynolds.
Yep.
At tight end. He is an excellent pass catcher. He is a willing blocker, but not a good one, which is important because that is going to be crucial in this scheme under Taylor Mauser, our offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. And I just think that they are going to be in a position where they're rebuilding that tight end room, right? Like Joey Schlaffer is already gone. Khalil Dinkins out of eligibility. You keep Andrew Rappleyea, which is important.
Big, yeah.
I do not anticipate Andrew Olish being back. I would be a little surprised at this point if he was. That being said, he hasn't entered the portal yet, so who knows? Maybe he sticks around. But yeah, you're looking at Rappleyea as your returner, and then again, fortunately for Penn State, there are guys from Iowa State that are in the transfer portal, like Ben Brahmer, who, if I had to pick 3 players right now to end up at Penn State from Iowa State, it would be Ben Brahmer, it would be Carson Hansen, the running back, and it would be Rocco Becht. I would be surprised if they're all not just on campus within a week.
Do they all
not a guarantee because these things can change, of course, but I would be surprised if that wasn't the case.
Do they all just visit at the same time, John? Is that the thing? Just like, hey guys, hey, haven't seen you in a month. How you doing? Been good to see. I mean, again, these guys are still all communicating, behind the scenes. These guys are teammates, all these types of things. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the Reynolds departure in that the upside is there. And again, that playoff run last year does not happen if it wasn't for Luke Reynolds and the play against Minnesota on special teams. I mean, that's kind of one of those moments that fans can feel however they want about that, about him leaving, but that's one of those moments. You don't go on that run last season if you don't beat Minnesota, and that was certainly a credit to Luke Reynolds. But yeah, keeping Rappleyea was huge, especially as we saw him take over down the stretch this season. Again, coming off last year's season-ending injury, this was a guy you could really see get better as the season progressed, and Terry Smith spoke so glowingly about, his kind of his motor, his willingness to play. I mean, this is a guy who, football means a lot to him and wants to be out there. And I think that toughness can be a tone setter for this team. And you talk about leadership and retaining guys. I think that's what you want because there has to be some level of cultural reset here, right? Like, I think that's the other part. And sure, you're going to get that with some of the older guys moving on. But I think that was a little bit of a kind of the problem this year was that there was certainly some leadership voids and those types of things. So yeah, I think Rappleyea can certainly step up and kind of be one of those notable guys. But John, should we get to the retention? As we all
there is one more.
Scanning.
There's one more departure that I want to talk about.
Okay.
And that is Xavier Gilliam at defensive tackle, because this is a spot where I think the position group is going to look different in general under Matt Campbell and new defensive coordinator Dan Lynn, who we're about to talk about. But I think Gilliam is someone that they wanted to retain, that there's a slight chance he comes back still, although I don't expect that to happen with pretty much, I saw this asked in the chat earlier, I don't expect anyone that goes in to come back. That's just kind of how it works. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We're going to get to those too before too long. But yeah, I think Gilliam is going to be a loss and really started to step up toward the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's to your point about guys going in and kind of testing the waters. That's often not what this is, right? Like these guys that are going in have had about a little bit less than a month with Matt Campbell to get to know him, to get to know this staff as it's being constructed. This isn't just, hey, I woke up on, December 31st, January 1st, decided I'm going to enter the portal and see what happens. Like these are often very calculated decisions. Not saying that somebody won't come back, but I would not anticipate players going in and then returning. So John and I have the alignment piece on that. Should we go keeping players and then Danton Lynn, or how do we want to?
Yeah, let's go keeping players, and we'll talk about Danton Lynn, and then everyone sort of that could join Penn State. I think easily the one of the most important players that they could have kept on this team is Cooper Cousins, and there is a level of leadership that comes with that too. He's a young interior offensive lineman who has experience, played a ton already. It's probably going to start in one of the 3 interior spots, and is clearly someone that they can kind of build around and build out from. Not just on the offensive line. There's another offensive lineman that I think falls in this category too. But I think when it comes to leadership and rebuilding a class and rebuilding a roster, Cousins is someone that you kind of point to as this is going to be a centerpiece of what this looks like moving forward. I'd be stunned if he's not a starter next year. Like absolutely stunned. He almost was this year. I would expect him to take a step forward under Ryan Clinton, the new offensive line coach, and to be a starter on next year's team.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it was really Cousins who sends the tweet out, right? Whatever day it was, puts the tweet out there that he's coming back. And, obviously retaining Anthony Donkoh is huge too. I mean, these are two massive pieces of your offensive line. As Penn State fans know, it's a lot to try and rebuild up front. And they've lived that and they don't want to live that again. So keeping those guys is absolutely big. I will start us off on the younger guy portion of really important keeps. Wide receiver Koby Howard announced Thursday night that he's staying at Penn State. As he was doing this, we then were watching Trey Wallace star last night, so that was also kind of interesting.
I imagine
interesting
a lot
experience.
of Penn State fans turned that one off.
Or you kept watching and were like, where was this last year? Believe he finished with like 9 catches for a ton of yards, a critical touchdown, 9 more receptions than any Penn State receiver had in the Orange Bowl last year, some might say.
There it is. I was
there it is.
You're right, the opportunity to say that. But no, I think I was going to say I think Howard is an important get, even if it's just for outside perception purposes, right? Like I think he is he's going to have a chance to start and have a chance to be sort of a feature player. That being said, I do think that they're going to bring in receivers too. Yeah. And I think that there will be it won't be like they're bringing in 2 receivers. I would anticipate this is a position that there are like 4 or 5 that come in, if not more. And so I think Howard's going to have to compete, but he's proven that he can see the field at least. I don't want to like be the rain cloud on this. But I think expectations for him should be reasonable, right? Like, I don't think you should come in and expect him to have 1,300 receiving yards next year as a full-time starter or anything like that. Like, he is still going to be a true sophomore next year. This is not this is not Jeremiah Smith. It's not a knock on Koby Howard. He's very good, but I think people need to temper their expectations sort of and expect a good contributing starting wide receiver. Frankly, something Penn State hasn't had in a few years.
I was just going to say, John, fans probably don't remember what that looks like. Because it has been that long. And yeah, I mean, again, keeping Howard is significant, and you stay in that same class of guys who just wrapped up their freshman year. Cornerback Darius Dixon is also staying at Penn State. This one, as the Pinstripe Bowl was a reminder to everyone, is huge. I think this is somebody who is going to be a superstar on this defense. We heard about it all year. We started to see it, especially late this season. And this is where keeping Terry Smith helps you out, right? And we had a chance to speak with Dixon after the Pinstripe Bowl, and I asked him at that point, like, do you still want to be here? And he said, yeah, but it was still, I need to make my decision, all those kinds of things. But it was, yeah, I'm a Penn Stater. I want to be here. So again, the perception piece that you hit on, John, that's significant, especially when you might have portions of the fan base to say, oh my God, everybody's leaving, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is crazy. It's really not. You're retaining some really, really good players. Yes, both of those freshmen were also among my 10 most important keeps. And the other guy, John, that I'm going to add while I'm thinking about the defense, because he was on my list. I've been banging this drum for a while, as I'm sure you have as well. Maybe some fans forgot about him because he was hurt this year. Defensive end Max Granville is coming back. And talk about a tone setter. This is a guy who I think would have been a starter this year had he been healthy. You look at what they're losing at defensive end with Chaz Coleman in the portal. I have not seen yet, John, if Chaz has a do not contact yet. I haven't looked.
No, actually, there are some SEC schools that are going to chase him as well. Still expect him to end up at Ohio State, but Lane Kiffin's going to Lane Kiffin. So never rule
That's
anything
always
out.
fun. That's always fun. Yeah, never rule anything out in this crazy sport. But yeah, Max Granville, I think, is another one of those guys that throughout, I mean, he kept catching my eye this year on the sidelines during these games where it's like, this guy, of course, can't play. He's injured. But he was so locked into what was happening and so bought in that I was like, you know what? Maybe this is somebody who stays despite not being from in the region, all those kinds of things. It's just a really interesting fit. I've seen a lot of the Deion Barnes left, the sky is falling responses with some of that. So again, coming back to perception here, perception and reality, I think keeping Granville also helps you on that front. Especially if you also keep Ivan Kamaju, which I would expect at this point. No announcement either way. I was going to say, yeah. Keep waiting on that one. Yeah, I would expect that one to happen at some point here. Again, with the caveat that these are kids, they can change their minds very quickly, as I have learned several times.
But I think the last.
What are you referring to, John?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, that was what I'm referring to. But I think that I'll round this out with two Virginia players who I think some thought were going to transfer to Virginia Tech, and that is Anthony Donkoh on the offensive line, who I hinted at earlier, and Tony Rojas at linebacker. Tony Rojas was, as far as I knew, gone to Miami like 3 weeks ago.
And the audio leaks hinted as much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really saying anything new with that, but when I found out, I was surprised that he was coming back, but it started trending this way over the last week or so. And I think, there are things that play into this with, he's coming off an injury, a long-term, did they ever say, I don't know if it's out there. What and now I'm scared to say
I don't remember.
All right, whatever.
Whatever. It's a long-term injury.
Long-term injury that a lot of players have suffered in recent years. But yeah, he's going to be an important part of this defense. He kind of cleans up a lot of mistakes or at least did this year. And I think that was why we saw the drop off with the UCLA game. The other one with Donkoh, they need tackles, right? Egan Boyer leaving is going to hurt. Garrett Sexton coming back will help, but he needs to take a step forward. Donkoh is probably going to start at right tackle. I would expect that to be the case unless they move him to the left side, but he is a tackle that is going to start, and that is really important in college football. And they were kind of short on those before he announced that he was coming back. That's the one that can, I think, help change the shape of the offense with Cousins too.
Yeah, and I think too, we're going to get to have this discourse all offseason now, John, of is Anthony Donkoh's better position, tackle or guard? And we know Phil Troutline thought that it was guard for a while, and I think it's tackle, and I think they're going to need him to be back at tackle, which of course was where he was last season. We do know that Javen Williams is also entering the portal, so you look at again, future tackles off of this roster, you're missing out there. And TJ Shanahan Jr. is somebody else that you talk about, the sixth offensive line guy who would have had more opportunities had he stayed. But again, this is another guy working on his third transfer. It is what it is.
Maybe going to Gainesville even to see what's going on down there in the swamp.
The Phil Troutline swamp line. Yeah, that's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, because this is where seeing where all these guys end up, and if it's with their position coach or, again, does Luke Reynolds end up at Virginia Tech, right? Like, is that a possibility? All of those pieces are going to be really interesting just to kind of see where guys land and how their careers unfold. But yeah, this is not a sky is falling situation.
No.
Keeping Tony Rojas was really important. Even if I'm with you, John, I thought he was definitely a goner. And man, he was tweeting through it and tweeting through the coaching search.
He sure was.
I mean, it's going to be fascinating. We know he wanted Terry Smith, and he made that known. But the fact that they were able to keep a guy who was very outspoken about wanting Terry, and oh my God, the coaching search is taking so long. I think that speaks to the job that Matt Campbell has done. And I'm going to throw this out there too, because this is something that comes up oftentimes that is not talked about with older players. But at the end of the day, despite we all know what college football is and what it's become, there are still parameters in place academically with progress to degree that older players must be making. It gets significantly harder to transfer. And I don't know if Tony, I'm not sure if he's graduated yet or not. I know Shelton did. I know Allard did. I remember seeing the photo recently with all those guys with Terry Smith. But it gets increasingly more difficult the older you get at an institution to then be like, hey, does this align? Perhaps it's a little bit easier for some SEC institutions, just perhaps. I don't want to throw that out there. But again, the timeline for Penn State, I want to bring this up because the first week of classes starts January 12th. So you have that kind of that window where, okay, if guys are coming back, you'd think they're going to be back. Who is there on the 12th is not set in stone. It does not mean they're staying. It does not mean they're leaving if they're not there on the 12th. That first week is really fluid because the semester, or sorry, not the semester ends. The transfer portal window ends that 16th, so 2 weeks from today. So you can still have players submit their paperwork on the 16th with an intention to transfer. They don't have to be decided by then, though most will. But just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, keeping Tony Rojas is going to be interesting, especially because we all saw what the defense looked like without him. But John, there are going to be changes to the defense moving forward too, aren't there?
Yes. New defensive coordinator Danton Lynn It has not been officially announced.
No.
I reported it Monday, I think it was Monday. And that Penn State was planning to hire him. That everything's done. He's here. Like he's
already hired a defensive line coach.
Yeah, like Akaika Malo, I believe is the pronunciation there.
I was gonna let you handle that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, the defense is going to change. It's going to look different. Lynn is going to bring what is essentially a base 4-2-5 system, less of the big nickel that Jim Knowles ran with a third safety. This is going to be a slot corner more than a third safety. It is going to be a defense that is adaptable, that is going to do different things up front, that is going to do different things at the back end. Like this is going to be it's going to be interesting, right? He's a rising star in this profession who Penn State targeted last year, who Penn State was told no by Jim Knowles and then circled around to other candidates and went to Danton Lynn, who gave a reason, who said no and didn't want to come to Penn State. And then all of a sudden, a year later, wants to come to Penn State. And now there's a different head coach. And I wonder why. And I wonder what changed.
A lot of things can change in a year, John.
I'll say this. I think that, because I know a lot of people are going to ask about this, James Franklin is, one, really good at this job, right, at being a head coach. And he's really demanding of that because he puts a lot of time and effort into it. And I think some coaches really like that and some don't, right? Some want the kind of separation. They don't want to be in the office 24/7. And so I think that it's a different style, right? That is part of the reasoning for some coaches wanting to be elsewhere, right? You see that, frankly, that kind of personality can be grating at times. It can be really good. It can help the team win a lot of games, but it can be tough. And so I
wouldn't
think
want to work for the guy. I'll just say it. I mean, I think it's just it's a level of demand that, I mean, I remember James Franklin telling us however many years ago it was. He's like, "Yes, my strength is my passion and drive. My worst quality is my passion and drive." That's just how he's wired. Yeah, and I think that's the challenge of being in a work situation like that, where it's like, hey, like the expectation starts at the top. And I'm not saying that people, don't want to work hard or this and that. It's just a very different style. And let's be honest too. And we saw this more on the offensive side of the ball with the OC changes and with the wide receiver coach changes. There is certainly a perception, and I think it's also reality, of when you're a James Franklin coordinator or a wide receiver coach, that there's going to be a lot of churn. So there's certainly our agents that are saying to their clients, hey, keep this in mind. This guy's churned through a lot of OCs. He's churned through a lot of wide receiver coaches, which we also know now, John, that Marcus Hagans, right, is expected to head to the Big Ten.
And one that you don't know.
What's happening now?
So Marcus Hagans is going to be assistant receivers coach at Michigan, not the assistant coach who coaches the assistant receivers coach. I think that's an important
to the regional manager.
Yes, that is the joke that I made too. Andy Kotelnicki is, according to Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, is heading back to Kansas to be the associate head coach. Not really a surprise there. Yeah, I mean, Andy was always great to deal with. He was always exceedingly kind to us with his time. I think he will have a lot of success once he's an offensive coordinator again, and we'll see what kind of that looks like moving forward down in Kansas and how that staff shapes up and what they do and everything.
That's a great reunion to see because you don't see that often, right? Where it's kind of like, all right, you left my staff, you're dead to me. But there's certainly a longstanding relationship there. I mean, again, it goes back to the 8 million different reasons why this season did not work for Penn State and why things flatlined. And again, last year at this time, right, we were talking about Andy Kotelnicki in West Virginia and how Penn State was supposed to be the launching point for him to get a head coaching job. And it just does not happen, right? So that's an interesting one. That's a fascinating one. As I keep looking elsewhere at other screens, the Danton Lynn piece, I want to loop back because we'll talk more about him. I covered Danton when I was a student, and he was a student at Penn State, and I've heard nothing but good things about players wanting to play for him, about him being a rising star, about the success of his defense. I have a story in my Substack locked and ready to go, and it's been waiting there for several days for me just to hit publish. And John, because this is just how the universe works, I was able to go back to a lengthy conversation I had with Anthony Lynn, Danton's dad, last fall for a story that never saw the light of day. So I went back, parsed through that interview, and got some really good details in there that I think fans are going to enjoy, just getting to know the player, the person. This also gives you as in Matt Campbell, not you as in John, this gives Matt Campbell another really strong link to the Letterman and the alumni base. And hey, this is one of your guys that's in here. So I think that's really important. But I don't want to give away the story because there are a lot of good quotes in there, a lot of good insights. I won't give away the connecting point, but there is a very strong one to Lynn and this staff. And no, it's not that he went to Penn State. That's in the story as well. But yeah, this should be, I'm hoping, finalized today. That's what I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get into targets, players Penn State can go after, and we'll answer your questions and everything. But first, Audrey, a word from our friends at Roback.
John, is that the logo? No, it's not a Roback shirt today, I don't think.
It is not. This is a much plainer t-shirt. I did have a Roback hoodie on when I went out earlier and carried my dog outside as he has a torn ACL, and I have to carry him to go to the bathroom. So
it's a common injury, John, in football, right? A lot of players.
It really is. That's a good.
Yeah.
Way to say it without saying it. Nice job. Yeah. Nice job.
But our friends at Roback are going to allow you to save 20% off of your first purchase of Roback apparel with code TND20. That's TND20 as in the Nittany Dispatch 20. Joggers, hoodies, hats, you name it, Roback makes it. Comfortable athleisure apparel as John scans the room looking for the dog, I think.
No, I was looking for a hat.
A hat.
I'm not wearing it.
I was going to say, that's what, yeah. It's rare. I say I don't have anything Roback on today either. But our friends at Roback are here to help you out with code TND20. That's TND20 to save 20% off of your first purchase. Go check it out. They still have the We Are collection up there, so you can get properly outfitted for the Matt Campbell era.
That's right. Speaking of the Matt Campbell era, I mentioned three names earlier that I think we both anticipate being here when the portal closes. That's quarterback Rocco Becht, tight end Ben Brahmer, and running back Carson Hansen. There will be a bunch of other Iowa State players. I mean, just to list some, just to name some guys, one of my favorite things to do. Chase Soule at wide receiver. You got Marcus Neal at safety. Do you have anyone else that you would like to add to this list, Audrey, that I believe is probably 15 to 20.
Iowa State side. I mean, yeah, they're gonna. And so I want to put this out there.
Sorry, before I forget, the name that we haven't mentioned that we need to is Alex Mansky at quarterback. He is a freshman at Iowa State going in the portal. If Penn State is able to target anyone to kind of be Rocco Becht's backup, Mansky is a pretty ideal candidate, a pretty ideal target, someone that they will, I believe, try to bring in to back up Becht for a year and then ultimately be the starter down the road.
To back up Becht. That's going to be, we should make that like a new segment, back up Becht. The theory, the idea that I've heard a lot about is if Penn State is willing to spend, which they are, why are they targeting Iowa State players? And I want to hit this point home. Penn State will
because they have like 60 spots to fill.
Yeah, Penn State will target other players. Absolutely. They've got to have a lot of spots to fill. That's part of it. The other thing is when you look at this, I want to say this Iowa State staff, but really this Iowa State staff that picked up and moved to Penn State is now the Penn State staff. These guys have been so successful because they've had to do a lot with a little, right? Their bread and butter is identifying talent, and that's often the 3 stars, often the guys that other teams are more flashed by the 4 and 5. They want those. But that was out of necessity at Iowa State. They had to find these guys, identify and develop. That's what they're really good at. So they are going to bank on their talent evaluations of players and say, hey, like, this is how we're going to do it. So you're going to see that familiarity because if they saw traits I'm just throwing this out there as a hypothetical. If they saw traits in a 3-star wide receiver that they had at Iowa State that they fell in love with, and they think that translates to the Big Ten, to this team, they're going to go after that guy. And if you're that player, as we're going to see with some of these Penn State departures, you have relationships with the staff. You trust them. You say, you know what? Sure, I will leave Ames because that roster, man, talk about a gutted roster. Whoo, boy.
Yeah, going through it right now. By the way, speaking of 3-star receivers, maybe if one's name is, I don't know, Brett Eskildsen from Iowa State, and he were to show up on campus this weekend and just happened to have his things with him.
Do they all just say, just bring the bags, just stay? I mean, really, because you don't want to have to deal with the airport this time of year, flying in and out. Just hang out for a week, get a good lay of the land. I am curious to see how this new coaching staff kind of structures these visits, just because these are guys that are just getting, now granted, you do have some holdovers from the old staff that can help, but these are guys that are just getting familiar with this area, with this town, right? Like what are the restaurants, the hot spots that they use on visits? Do they know those? Again, this is where your institutional knowledge comes into play with your recruiting department, having some holdovers from that last staff. But yeah, I mean, I think this is why you're going to see so many Iowa State people. I've seen the joke made. I like it, that it's going to be the Penn State Cyclones next year. Yeah, very well could be. But I think there is a formula that works, that the staff has found success with, and you sprinkle in some of those other guys that you can get from elsewhere and guys that you can retain, and you see what happens.
Maybe even an offensive lineman from Iowa State, like Trevor Burr. I'm just going to keep saying names.
Just keep going. I'll let you keep going. Yeah, sure.
All guys that, if they just happen to have their stuff and are here this weekend. But no, I do think that's a good assessment of the situation, right? And what you said about the talent evaluation is apt too, right? I do think they need to lean on some of those higher end players too. Mm-hmm. But like you said, they didn't because they couldn't at Iowa State. I'm sure they will evaluate those guys to be worthy of their ranking and recruit those players too. I also wouldn't be surprised if, when we saw this a lot with James Franklin, they offer a guy who's a 3-star recruit as a sophomore, and all of a sudden that guy's a fringe 5-star as a senior, right? Yeah. Like that's going to happen a good bit with the staff. They're very good at evaluating. They're very good at this part of the job. But yeah, I think that's notable. I think the other part of it is not everyone that is in the portal right now is everyone that will be in the portal. There are names worth monitoring. It is very funny to see that everyone continues to pay very close attention to who I follow on Twitter.
I don't, John, to be clear, I do not.
I know. I was sent this by several people that they noticed that I followed Rutgers wide receiver KJ Duff, probably a name to keep an eye on moving forward if he goes in the portal. Someone who had probably the best catch I've ever seen in person, like a ridiculous grab against Penn State. He's 6'6". He's a very good wide receiver. But there will be other names like that pop up too. You're seeing names pop up too that are visiting Penn State, that are scheduling visits. They're going to be active. They have to fill a roster. You can't just do that with Iowa State. And I think to your point, like they're going to take the guys from Iowa State or recruit the guys from Iowa State. Take is not the right way to phrase that. They're going to recruit the guys. Yeah, right. That's how fans do it. They're going to recruit the guys from Iowa State that they believe can help at the level Penn State wants to be at. They're going to try and get the guys from the top of the roster. They're not going to take guys just to take them, just because they're familiar with them. If they're taking someone from Iowa State, it's safe to assume that they believe that player is a Penn State caliber player and can contribute to a team that can win a national title. Like that's the goal for them. That's the goal for everybody here. That being said, do you want to get into some questions here that we've had in the chat? Sure.
The questions that I never clicked the tab on for. I want to mention this because while you were talking, I went back to Twitter, former Twitter, now X, and I saw the Kotelnicki stuff that you were talking about from Ross. I want to mention this is good news for Penn State. Contract mitigation, you save some money, right? So both of Penn State's coordinators end up landing elsewhere. Both, I believe, isn't KU? They're an Adidas school as well, I believe.
Yeah, I think they are.
Both end up at Adidas institutions. They were going to wear Adidas in the end anyhow.
Yeah, and I'm sure people will turn that into, Adidas got them hired. That's not what happened.
I forgot about that. Well, actually, it was Adidas that ran this whole coaching surge.
Yeah, right. Adidas made every decision along the way, according to some people. And it is very obvious who was peddling some of that information too, which I find funny. First question I saw, I think before we even went live or right after, how much of an upgrade over Grunk is Rocco Becht? I think he is an upgrade. I think long-term, you're weighing the value of someone who could start for potentially 3 years. Although Grunk, like if he's good enough, he's going to be gone in a year or two anyways too. Like this is not a thing where he was going to be here for 5 years. But I think Becht is an upgrade. He throws a great deep ball. He makes quick decisions. He's willing to test tight windows, which is something you want out of a quarterback. As I've said time and time again, he's a good but not great athlete who's a tough physical runner when he takes off. And most importantly, he's familiar with this offense. Shouldn't say most importantly. Very importantly, he's familiar with this offense. Most importantly, he's a very good quarterback, and I think will be one of the better quarterbacks of the Big Ten next year.
Yeah, I think at this point for this program, you want a quarterback who can come in and say, hey, set the tone for the room. This is the offense. This is how Taylor Mauser wants it to be run. This is how we do it. Like, I think your quarterback is always going to be a tone setter and has to be. And Matt Campbell told us when he met with local reporters that everybody should always know in that locker room who the starting quarterback is, that it should be abundantly clear with their leadership skills, their traits, all those kinds of things. This is as much of a cultural reset guy as he is the leader of your offense, right? Like, I think those two things have to go hand in hand. And so you have the opportunity to do this with Rocco Becht. And yes, I believe it's going to be Rocco Becht. I don't think there's some mystery quarterback candidate that we're going to see come in from door 3, right?
I think it'll be. Yeah, I think it'll be Becht and Alex Mansky. Like right now, that's as things stand. I think those two K7s, and we'll see who else make up the quarterback room next year. It'll kind of be, frankly, what Iowa State planned to have at their quarterback last year, or going into this year from last year. Question here about Devontae Ross having any eligibility left. No, he does not. He could have redshirted this year, and he would have had another year, but he did not redshirt. Does not have a year. Question here about Nick Marsh, the wide receiver from Michigan State, who I think a lot of people wanted to get, and I think Penn State would have pushed for had he gone in last year. I kind of expect him to end up in the South and expect him to end up at an SEC school, especially given that where Penn State is going to push at different positions. I think wide receiver is going to be a priority. I don't think Nick Marsh, especially because he didn't take a step back, but he wasn't as good this year as he was as a freshman. I think that is important in this too. And that, frankly, if I were to shell out for a receiver, I would probably swing elsewhere.
This all goes back to the relationship piece too, right? You have to think and look at who did these Iowa State guys recruit heavily when they were at Iowa State? What are those relationships? Because we saw this play out so many times with James Franklin, where they got back in on a guy who said no to them originally coming out of high school and those kinds of things. But I thought you were going to try to mention something. I'll keep leading the elephant into the room of these guys of Penn State past or could have been, and Brandon Finney Jr. And I thought, I just keep leading names in there for the heartbreaks of the past, because this playoff has had it all, John. It's had so many Penn State angles, which is selfishly, it's been very nice. I'm sure you feel the same way, to sit back and watch these games and watch while monitoring the portal and updating the tracker and like all of that. But it's been very nice. So again, these relationships that you form with high school recruits, you never know where they're going to end up. But just wanted to throw that one out there, because I know there was some definitely some James Franklin revisionist history getting rewritten on Thursday night.
For sure. But that being said, Finney probably should be at Penn State right now. I think that one is an exception to a lot of the stuff that people say. Someone asked about Tysier Denmark. He was the first player I saw go off the field at the Pinstripe Bowl before the trophy presentation. It was him and Braz Thomas, who was already in the portal. Do not anticipate Tysier Denmark being back, although he's not announced a decision, I should say. Let you take this one, Audrey. Someone asked, do you think there's a chance Anthony Lynn could be the running backs coach?
Chance, potentially. I mean, there's a chance for a lot of things. Does he want to deal with the college game and work for his son? That I don't know, because you look at the trajectory, and Anthony Lynn has been an NFL guy. And actually, one of the things I asked him last year was, do you see your son going the NFL route? Because, just the way the college game is. And he said, no. He said, I think the college game right now, because it's so transactional, mirrors the NFL. Like, obviously, you want to get these portal windows, or this year the window, tied up. I'm sure some calendar reform hopefully comes in the future. Maybe we move the portal to May and all these other things. But I do think there's an interesting connection here. There's an interesting opportunity if he wants to do this. If you remember, and I don't expect people to remember this because this is like way in the weeds, Penn State history of yonder. But when Danton was getting recruited to Penn State, Anthony Lynn was with the Cleveland Browns. And part of the pitch was, hey, you guys are kind of going to be near each other now. Won't this be nice? And then we see where it is now, where these guys have been father-son across the country. Danton, I believe, has 2 young kids. And so they're across the country. So again, like, what's the family dynamic? Do you want to be closer to your kid? Do you want to work for your kid? I don't know. I think it'd be a really fun opportunity if it materializes that way, because as the question hits on, Penn State still does need a running backs coach. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
Still technically needs a linebackers coach as well, worth noting. Although I expect Dan Connor to be at Penn State next year. That can change. I said the same thing about Deion Barnes, and then 2 hours later he's at South Carolina. That I think got everybody off guard.
That was a weird one.
To lay it out, Penn State had come to an agreement with Deion Barnes with what kind of that would look like with him being at Penn State. South Carolina pursued him, made a better offer, and Penn State was not willing to kind of keep going in that direction or getting any type of bidding war, and then made a decision to move on. That's why Malo is now here too, with Lynn, or will be here, I should say, as the run game coordinator, defensive line coach. And
they were together at UCLA, which the full
for a year.
Yes, and I don't want to give away my story, but there's a lot of details in there on Danton Lynn. Again, not final yet.
No, don't worry, I'm watching our email.
No. TJ Shanahan is set to visit Florida. That's interesting. I wonder.
Oh wow! No way.
But the Danton Lynn connecting point beyond the Penn State staff is the guy who helped get him in was Chip Kelly, and the Chip Kelly connection came from Bill O'Brien, who hired Danton to be the Houston Texans DB's coach, and he'd done a lot of work with the Texans prior to that. So next year we're getting Chip Kelly at Northwestern as the OC, getting Danton Lynn as Penn State's DC, and that'll be at Northwestern's new stadium. So that'll be a low-key interesting matchup of, hey, Chip was the guy because of the recommendation from Bill O'Brien, who hired Danton out at UCLA to be his DC, and that was kind of the everybody waking up to, hey, this guy's a young rising star. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how Danton Lynn does here. But it's also, John, it's going to be a situation where your defensive coordinator is 36 and your offensive coordinator is 34. That's interesting. That's a young, and again, this is a staff that has been skewing young for quite a while. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Worth noting, too, that Malo was the defense coordinator who took over for Lynn after Lynn left for USC, but left after 3 games. When he left when Deshaun Foster got fired, they parted ways, I think was the way it was phrased. And so he was part of that staff. But yeah, has largely been a defensive line coach at Washington. And I think he's been linebackers coach as well at Washington.
A lot of West Coast ties, yeah.
Yeah, which is only an issue, I guess, if you're the head coach at BYU, according to everyone. As I see nobody criticize Kyle Whittingham getting hired at Michigan. I just think it's very, very, very funny. Someone asked, what does the do not contact tag signify when entering the portal? Does it signify that the player already knows their destination? Not necessarily. I have that used to be the case in a major way, but now like it kind of means go through my agent. Like I don't want to personally be contacted. And so there is a lot of times those guys know where they're going, what they're going to do, but it is not necessarily always the case when a player does that with the do not contact tag. I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, because I mean, the information that pops up when you're in there, it is like your phone number, your email, and it's like literally, do you want your contact information to get blown up? Or is it, hey, this is my agent, please go through this person? Yeah. And again, this is just the era of the sport. The agents are facilitating a lot of this. But yeah, some of these guys absolutely are going in, knowing where they want to go, and you'll see stuff fall into place here really shortly. But that's the name of the game right here in 2026.
Yeah, someone asked any update on Amari Campbell. Not right now.
Nothing yet, yeah.
I think that one could go either way. I'll be interested to see how it plays out. I did see someone call it what's going on a travesty because Franklin was hired with no experienced head coach standing by to immediately take over. That's not how coaching searches work. Guys don't just step in.
It was a travesty that he got fired, or
yeah, I think that the players are leaving, which is what you would anticipate to happen pretty much every year moving forward. By the way, but yeah, I think that is unreasonable to expect Penn State to have made a hire in like October, like some people were saying, which was never true. It was never going to happen that early. They were always targeting sitting head coaches.
I wonder how Alabama fans are feeling today with Kellen DeBoer. Sorry, too soon.
Yeah. Also very funny. I said it before, and Cul-de-sac yelled at me for it, but he's going to be on the hot seat going into next year with this kind of result, getting embarrassed by Indiana. And if they go 9-3 or 10-2, like I wouldn't be surprised if things changed at Alabama. It's just not the standard there.
I very much enjoyed watching the Big Ten take it to the SEC in that game, and I think that's if you recall, John, last week when we did our playoff predictions, and we both said, oh, we think Ohio State's going to get hot. They're going to go on a run. They're so dominant. Not to add salt to the wound here, but I'm sure it will. You look at how Penn State played Indiana this year, and you say, you know what? This team still, despite going 7-6, there was talent. There were moments there to be had. Again, it's just another way to look at it. I'm not saying that Penn State was fantastic. We all know that this was not a great year. But there were those moments. If you catch a really good team on a not so great day, you make them a little uncomfortable. You have your shot. And that's, again, one of the weird what ifs, because as we watched that Indiana game, you kept seeing all of the Penn State highlights. And I was like, oh, man, poor Penn State fans watching this thing, because it's just a reminder of kind of how close they were.
Yeah, for sure. And just to follow up, I saw that the travesty was one of them was turning down Urban Meyer, which I find very funny. Urban Meyer's bad at this, would be bad at this moving forward.
Yeah.
We
don't need to give that one oxygen.
Yeah, Urban Meyer would have been the things I would have written had they hired Urban Meyer.
Come on, John, 2026, our resolution here on the Dispatch is never to say the word Urban Meyer again on the Dispatch in 26.
That's fair. That's probably fair. I need to avoid that name and another one who used to be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State that I can't keep out of my mouth. Apparently, someone asked which position is currently the weakest and strongest on each side of the ball. In our opinions, I would say right now the weakest is, and this is assuming like those guys that I said were going to come are going to come. I think probably the offensive line, just because they need starters, they need depth, they kind of need everything there outside of a few guys they're bringing back. Strongest, I think indisputably it's quarterback. Like you kind of know you're getting backed.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the problem with trying to have this discussion. When
John, if you get Rocco
on the
back.
way. Yeah, right. Yeah. If you get Rocco back. But yeah, I think on defense, the strongest will just kind of forever be cornerback here. It seems like they're always going to be really
Terry's
strong
here.
there. Yeah, and they have really good players. Not Davian Collins. They have Darius Dixon coming back. Jameer Joseph could come back. I don't think he's announced his decision yet, but I think that's where that's trending. And the weakest right now, unfortunately for Penn State, is probably defensive tackle. It's not great up the middle right now.
I was going to say the receiving corps, but that's like been just a running joke at this point. But hey, you get Koby Howard back. You're going to bring some guys in. Like, I think
that's the thing.
There.
Like, they bring in Eskildson and
I need to go through I started going through the pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
Iowa State they have the cool thing where if you click the button, it tells you how to say the person's name. I did that with the tight end earlier. But yeah, I think you look at the offensive line, certainly. We got to see what happens at running back. We know Cam Wallace is going in the portal. Quentin Martin Jr., I have not seen anything yet. There's been no movement as of Friday at 12:04 p.m.
Now, I expect him to be back.
That's going to be one of those ones where does he stay, does he go?
I think he's going to compete for the starting job here, quite frankly. But we'll see how that plays out. I did see Mike Rhodes catch a stray in the chat. Someone mentioned that Penn State losing by 40 a night in men's basketball. That'll be another interesting one to watch moving forward.
Well, aren't they? Isn't a Palestra game Saturday? Is it?
Yeah. So the combined KenPom ranking of Penn State's next three opponents, like if you add the totals together of their ranking of the next three, is 14. They play the number 9 team, the number 1 team, and the number 4 team. So it could get ugly.
You know, I'll be in the city tomorrow, but going to the game didn't even cross my mind. Don't worry, John. I will not be there. I will stay as far away from Penn State basketball as I need to this time of year.
Yeah, I will not be there either. I don't think anyone has to worry about that. I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of visits happening. We're going to be live again, probably early to mid next week, I think.
Assuming none of us gets the flu again. Yeah.
By the way, that's to be clear, we had intended on recording earlier this week.
Yeah.
And Audrey.
I came back
was
from the
under the weather.
Pinstripe Bowl with the flu. Yeah, that was just a perfect way to end 2025. But I'm back now, and the roster is getting reset, and the defensive coordinator hire should be coming hopefully today, Friday. Hopefully it gets announced. I can hit publish on that story. Yeah, I mean, I just keep thinking, like, what's the next shoe that's gonna drop? Because it's just so many little moves, right? Like, you knew it was coming. But as you get this coaching staff kind of moving on, as you inch toward the start of the spring semester, this is like 20th thing on the radar, but I am interested to find out when Penn State actually will begin their off-season workouts with Matt Campbell, because the semester starts the 12th. So do they still give the guys that week, or do they start the 19th? Again, people will be in the building lifting either way. But yeah, John, I want to meet this new coaching staff. I want to get in front of these guys and start picking their brains, because there is literally an entire coaching staff for Penn State to introduce, which is good for us because we're going to have a lot to talk and write about all off season. I know people have asked, what's our recording schedule in the off season? We will keep it rolling as often as we can, as schedules, as flu dictates, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, we will try to be live. We'll not try to. We will be live once a week moving forward. Sometimes it'll be twice a week if the situation merits it. We will figure that out as we can. I did see someone mention, yes, Justin Lustig is also going to be back.
That's right.
I will be curious to
Ryan
see
Barker.
what that. Yes, I will be curious to see what that looks like with Lustig. Campbell did not have a special teams coordinator. You can be pretty flexible with how you shape staffs now, though, right? Like, it's not just the 10 assistants like it used to be. Like, you can have 10 assistants and also analysts who are those coaches, and then you can shift who goes out on the road and recruiting by designating those coaches at that specific time to be the designated coaches to go out. So, yes, as noted in the chat, and I appreciate this, if you subscribe, you get notifications when we go live. So hit that thumbs up button down below. Hit the subscribe button down below. Thank you to everyone who has wished us a happy new year. We greatly appreciate that. Someone asked if there's a lump sum payment for Rocco Becht, just to trigger me, and I appreciate that.
It's time to Rocco and roll. Is that
okay? No, none of that. This is a good time to go.
Same jokes, new year.
Yes, if you are watching on YouTube, like I said, hit the thumbs up button down below, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Those really help us out. If you'd like to read all of Audrey's work, you can find it at insidethelions.substack.com. You can find her on Twitter at OddSnyder4. You can find her on Blue Sky at AudreySnyder.bsky.social. You can find me on Blue Sky at JohnSauber.bsky.social. You can find me on Twitter at John Sauber. You can find all of my writing at SenateDaily.com. Right now, I've got a portal preview primer type thing up right now. There's a bunch of names
preview
there.
Primer.
Yes. Some names we didn't even mention here that you can go find over at SenateDaily.com. We appreciate all of you guys. We appreciate all of the questions. We will be back, I'm going to guess, early next week based on, the way this is going to go and how many Iowa State players just happen to visit with all of their luggage ready to move into Penn State. But until then, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.